You, my friend, are nature. You are nature. Your creativity, your energy, your power, it all has seasons. Every element of your being has seasons. And when you try to be on all the time, constantly going, constantly pushing creativity, constantly scrambling for power in your everyday life, constantly doing one more thing without any letting your energy recalibrate and slow down and rest and reemerge, you're literally working against your own self. You're working against your own power, and you are widening the witch wound for all of us. And I've done this too. So I don't say this to point fingers. I also am one who definitely is still working on not being on at all times and allowing the ebbs and the flows and the cyclical nature, the seasonality of my energy, of my creativity to be in the steering wheel of my life. And when we slow down, when we make space, when we live in a more nature aligned way, we can be supported in healing the witch wound, not only for ourselves, but for the collective. This is part 3 of a 4-part series on the witch wound. If you missed parts 1 and 2, go back and check those out. There is some good stuff there. But for now, it's time to get into part 3. If there's one thing that I have learned from almost 10 years of working with witchy women, mostly in the midlife season here at the Sisters Enchanted, it is that we resist seasonality. All right, let me pull back on this a little bit. What is seasonality? When you look all around outside your world, your environment, we have indicators of the season that we are in. Temperature indicators, plant indicators, animal indicators, rain indicators, snow indicators, clouds, everything, right? Where the sun is in the sky, how long the days are, how long the nights are. Tons of indicators available to us to remind us of what season we are in. The solar year, this is the solar year, reminds us that there is a time to grow. There's a time to plant seeds. There's a time to compost. There's a time to rest and turn everything over again. But in our modern lives, we don't abide by that same rhythm. We just push and we just go and we just go. And I think that when we talk about solar energy, and we do this here at the Sisters Enchanted, we will liken solar energy to assertive, taking action, masculine sort of energy, like out there, what you can see around you energy. And even in astrology, the sun relates to the idea of who you are. I am declarative statement, right? We're declaring our place in the world. And when we're declaring this place in the world, it can feel very nerve wracking to step back and maybe lose our place in the world. But it's that fear of stepping back, of shedding away, of going quiet that actually causes us to lose the momentum, lose the power, become so exhausted that we throw in the towel and we succumb to the world that has pushed us so hard that we fall right into the trap of the witch wound again. If you need more on the witch wound to sort of baseline what we're talking about here, be sure to go back to video 1 of this series. That's going to help you out, going to catch you up and know what it is that I am talking about. When we're looking at healing the witch wound, it is so critical for you to remember that you are not just this person trying to find space for themselves in this world and survive the day. You are nature. You are the cosmos. You are the universe. You are creation. You are energy. You are all of these things. And when we fall victim to the notion that we must continuously create. We must pump energy out for ourselves, for other people. We must hold everyone. We must do everything. That is the witch wound because it's an impossible standard. It is an impossible standard, and it's not one that is sustainable. And we burn out, and that is like having that fire lit at your feet that you feel like you can't get away from, being tossed into the water to, if you drown, right? That's the whole thing with witches, the European witch trials. If you're tossed in the water and you drown, then you weren't a witch after all, but you're already dead. When you are tossing yourself into the world day in and day out without living through the seasonality of your energy and honoring the seasonality of your energy, of your creativity, and of your power, you are throwing yourself into the water only to find that you don't float and you weren't evil after all, right? But by then it's too late. So we must break the illusion of separation between ourselves and nature. Nature is the solar world. Nature all around us is the representation of the solar world. So when we demonize action and we demonize I am and taking up space and this masculine energy, nature is the representation of solar seasonality. Solar seasonality is reminding us that we need to be cyclical, that our energy is seasonal. We can use this energy as a healing tool for ourselves. And the seasonal energy we see all around us, we can apply it to our own selves to heal the witch wound and allow for rest. When we're not doing that, we are again creating a rift between us and the very solar nature of the world around us. And this tracks and hits home in a big way, I think, for women, because we're so afraid of being wrong, of being visible, of being called out, of being seen. And in many studies, it has been found over time that women executives in particular have a higher rate of imposter syndrome than male executives do. It can be, and I mean, whenever we talk about numbers, we want to look at what was the study, who paid for the study, how many people are we talking about here? But if you just give it a Google, you can find numbers as high as 75% of female executives surveyed feel some level of imposter syndrome. And when we are not living in that seasonal rhythm, right? That is imposter syndrome. We are living in a way that we are not meant to live, and we can feel it in our bones. And I think that chips away at our sense of being, our authenticity, our sense of knowing, our sense of self-trust. And one of the ways that this plays out for women in regard to the witch wound. And again, you'll want to go back to video 1 if you missed that, because I dove deep into what the witch wound is and how it shows up for us. But is this concept of the glass cliff, particularly in the workplace. And this is really talked about by a company called Catalyst. And they brought this to light through looking at companies who hire women as executives of companies where there's a high risk for failure. So companies that are currently on the road to failure. And then after Catalyst did this work, other companies and other organizations have talked about it, have written about it. So, you can give it a search, give it a Google. But the idea that hiring women for failing companies more than men are hired for failing companies. Surface level, that looks like a good thing, right? Like we trust women. But what we're seeing there is that false use of light and visibility in order to put women in the position of the witch wound and be treated as scapegoats. So when the company fails, they shouldn't have put a woman in charge, right? And now they're the scapegoat. Now, of course, this is opinion. You can probably argue a whole different argument for this. I'm not interested in arguing. This is a perspective and it's something to consider. It sits with you or it doesn't. But what we're doing there is, instead of acknowledging that sometimes there is a place for letting go and releasing and readjusting, the women are punished for the failure that was inevitable anyway, right? And that would be like the earth being punished for the trees dying that were going to die anyway, because it's part of seasonality. And so we really want to pull back on imposter syndrome. We want to pull back on our view of solar energy and demonizing this solar masculine connection. And we want to look at how we can use seasonal rhythms and the lessons of the seasons to remind ourselves that we are nature. And through utilizing these seasonal rhythms, heal the witch wound within ourselves and in turn within society. So we can look at this by the seasons. That's the easiest way to look at this. And starting at the winter season. So I love to start the progression or like the journey through the seasons with winter. Some people love to start with spring because of the emergence. Whatever floats your boat is fine with me. Go back to the last episode of this series too, to hear about belonging versus fitting in. You don't need to believe what I believe to fit in. Let's belong, not fit in. But when we think about winter energy, we want to rest. This is a going inward sort of energy. It is a restoration moment. It's a moment where we allow possibility to brew within us. We sort of marinate on how it is we want to show up in life, how we want to feel, what's our energy going to be like. And it's a slow boil for us. It's not something that we just have to know instantly. Winter is a whole season. And for you, when you're doing this process of coming back to the solar rhythms, this could be a series of days or hours or weeks or months, or maybe you're like, dude, I have been in winter for years. Someone pull me out. And that's what community is for. So we have the rest of winter. And after we rest, we have the emergence of spring. This is that gentle visibility. It's the new growth. It's like touching ground again and seeing what's going to come up for us. So if we're looking at healing the witch wound, to do that, we must first go quiet. We must first go quiet. We must first look at our own energy. How do we want to show up? What's going on under the ground, right? Under the layers of leaves and snow. What is happening under there? What is settling? What's dying? What's staying and going to come, in the next season? And then we start to emerge and we're rested. So the emergence doesn't feel so hard. And when, our seeds don't land where we thought they would, we have capacity for it because we have first rested. Then we have the summer energy. Summer solar energy it's a very shadow work type energy, but it is where we are most visible, which is what leads to the shadow work. So we have rested, we're sort of emerging, then we're very visible in our energy. We can step into belonging. We can try things, say things, and put ourselves out there. And when this happens, though, our shadows appear. And we might stumble and we might fall backwards. We might pour some salt in that witch wound and lose some confidence along the way, which is where autumn energy comes in. And with autumn, we are releasing what no longer serves us. We are composting, we're dropping the leaves, the experiences that taught us something, but we don't need to carry forward, they drop away. And then we do this all over again with that winter rest. And through this seasonal rhythm, we're reminded that perfection is not a thing. When the light is on us and we are most visible in summer, just think about summer around you, right? Sometimes it's so hot, the grass just dries up. Where I live in Connecticut, we'll have droughts, right? There's not enough rain and the grass gets all crispy brown and it's like so hot out. You just want to hide inside because it feels unbearable to be out there. And we all have this within us as well when we try to take action. And what happens is when we don't live as if we are nature and we don't make space for the rhythms in our lives, that is when we fall victim to the shadow that appears. And that shadow is the witch wound. I'm too visible. I'm too this. I'm not good enough. I'm not whatever. Someone saw me. I don't want to be, I've got imposter syndrome now. I'm going to be the scapegoat for this because I should have known better. I'm the person in charge here. Everyone's leaning on me. I'm the nurturer. I'm the matriarch. Now it's my problem. All of these shadows appear, which is why we need that seasonal rhythm to support us. It's why we need it in our own lives, why we need to integrate it into our way of being. When we align with the seasons, we remember that power and rest are both sacred. Taking the action and resting are both sacred. And that is a direct path to healing the witch wound for all of us, allowing for both the power and the rest. And what this does too is it doesn't only heal the witch wound for women, it's healing it for men as well, because we also have this idea in our world, stereotypically, not for everybody. If you're here listening to this, maybe it doesn't, maybe you're like, that does not apply to me. I am so on the other side of that. But this idea that men like need to work hard and grind to take care of their families and show up and be the provider and like all of that, right? And so when we're healing the witch wound for ourselves, remember that the witch trials did not only impact women. Men were also accused of witchcraft, particularly in Northern Europe. We can see some countries where it was mostly men who were tried and accused of witchcraft. So this does impact all of us, and men too hold the stories that align with the witch wound in regard to powerful women. And so when we are healing the relationship to seasonality and we're working with that solar year and we're honoring the wheel of the year and the festivals on the wheel of the year, and we're making space to come into community and find our belonging with these 8 festivals, we are healing the witch wound within us, within the collective that we are belonging in, and for the energy at large. It is not something that can be done in isolation. It is something that is done for all of us and something that all of us need. We do not need to be on all the time to be magical. No matter who you are in this world, you do not need to be on all the time to be magical. You do not need to put yourself on a witch trial here and decide that you were good after all, only when you drowned in the thick of doing everything you said you needed to do in order to be good, valuable, worthy, powerful, and visible in this one sacred life that you have. Sometimes the most powerful thing that you can do is honor the season that you are in. Often, the most powerful thing that you can do is honor the season that you are in. And when you're in belonging, it can be so wonderful to be witnessed and celebrated in that season, no matter what season it is. And that is how we start to heal the witch wound as a collective and for yourself. All right, y'all, we've got one more part in this 4-part series. We are going to talk about the lunar cycles. So in this part 3, we dove into solar seasonality. We're going to look at lunar cycles in the next part and bring all of this together where we dive in and look at your inner world and the moon and lunar phases. Be sure to go back to parts 1 and 2 if you missed those. Check out the notes of this episode for resources. Maybe join us in our Enchanted Journey membership. We'd love to have you, where we work with the solar rhythms and also the lunar rhythms and practice witnessing and celebrating and bringing all of this together in community. And I will see you in the next episode. Until then, stay magic, Enchanted Sister.